You do not lose because you lack strength. You lose because you start without finishing in mind. You rush into work with excitement, not with a map. Then the first resistance shows up, the first delay, the first unexpected cost, and your confidence collapses. That is not bad luck. That is poor planning. A winner does not merely begin. A winner plans all the way to the end, then executes as if the end is inevitable. Most men plan for the start and hope the middle works itself out. Hope is not a strategy. The world does not reward hope. It rewards method. You need to understand what planning really is. Planning is not daydreaming. Planning is not listing goals. Planning is not talking about what you want. Planning is seeing the road, the obstacles, the costs, the time, and the decisions required before you are forced to face them in panic. A plan is a commitment to direction. Without direction, effort becomes waste. A man can work hard for 10 years and still be poor, still be unknown, still be confused if he works without a clear plan to the end. Movement without direction is not progress. It is exhaustion. The reason you have failed before may not be because you were incapable. It may be because you did not plan beyond the first phase. You got inspired, you began, you made a few moves, then reality demanded a second phase. Patience, refinement, money management, consistency, problem solving, and you were not prepared. You had no structure for the middle. So the middle broke you. The middle is where most men quit. Not at the beginning, not at the end. In the middle, that is why you must plan to the end. Planning to the end means you plan for the middle. You plan for the slow season. You plan for the days with no reward. You plan for the boring repetition that builds mastery. You plan for discouragement before it arrives, so it does not surprise you into surrender. That definite purpose is the starting point. Not vague desire, definite purpose. If your purpose is vague, your plan will be weak. If your plan is weak, execution will be scattered. If execution is scattered, results will be random. That is not success. That is gambling with your life. So you begin by writing your purpose in one sentence that leaves no room for confusion. What do you want? How much do you want? By when? What will you give in return? What value will you deliver? If you cannot answer these clearly, you are not planning. You are wishing. Once your purpose is definite, you build the plan backward from the end. Most men plan forward blindly. I will start and see what happens. Winners plan backward. This is the end result. What must be true right before I arrive there? Then, what must be true right before that? Step by step, you reverse engineer the road. This method eliminates fantasy. It forces you to deal with reality. It forces you to identify the necessary skills, the necessary resources, the necessary relationships, and the necessary daily habits. It also reveals what you must stop doing. If the end requires mastery, you must stop living like a drifter. If the end requires wealth, you must stop spending like a child. If the end requires leadership, you must stop reacting emotionally. Planning to the end exposes the cost. Most people avoid planning because they fear the cost. But the cost exists whether you face it or not. Avoiding it does not remove it. It only delays the pain. Now understand the difference between a plan and a wish list. A wish list is made of outcomes. A plan is made of actions. Outcomes are not under your direct control. Actions are. Winners focus on actions. A winner says, every day I will do these specific things that produce the end. A loser says, I hope the end happens. If you want a winner's mindset, you must shift your focus from dreaming about the finish line to building the daily steps that lead to it. A plan to the end must include contingencies. This is where most men fail. They plan as if nothing will go wrong. Then the first problem destroys their confidence. A winner assumes problems will come, not because he is negative, but because he is realistic. He says, obstacles are part of the price. So he asks in advance, what are the likely obstacles? Where will I be tempted to quit? What will be my biggest weakness in the middle? Will it be impatience, lack of money, fear of criticism, lack of consistency? Then he builds protections, savings, routines, mentors, boundaries, a schedule, a weekly review, a support network. This is planning. It is not fear. It is preparation. And planning is worthless without execution. Execution is the proof of a winner's mindset. A winner does not wait for perfect feeling. He executes when the feeling is low, because he knows feelings change and purpose must remain. He executes when others are confused, because he knows confusion is common and clarity is rare. He executes when results are invisible, because he knows roots grow before fruit appears. He executes with consistency, because he understands the law of accumulation. A little done daily becomes a lot. A lot done rarely becomes nothing. That is why the winner's mindset is not excitement, it is consistency. Now the most important part. To execute with a winner's mindset, you must decide that you are the kind of person who finishes. Most men live as starters. They are addicted to beginnings. Beginnings feel powerful. Beginnings are full of imagination. The middle is where character is required. The end is where discipline is rewarded. If you want to plan all the way to the end, you must become a finisher. That is an identity decision. You will not finish by accident. You will finish because you choose to be the kind of man who does not abandon what he starts. So make a rule. You will not start a serious project without defining its finish. What does done look like? What is the standard? What is the timeline? What are the milestones? What are the daily actions? What are the weekly checkpoints? Who will hold you accountable? If you cannot answer these, you are not ready to start. Starting without these answers is mismanagement. It is ego. It is the desire to feel movement without paying the price of structure. Now, let us address the fear that rises when you plan to the end. Planning to the end forces you to face how much work is required. It exposes the gap between where you are and where you want to be. That gap can intimidate you. Some men respond by shrinking their dreams. Others respond by ignoring the plan and going back to wishful thinking. Winners respond differently. They break the gap into steps and commit to the first step fully. They do not try to swallow the whole road in one day. They choose the first action, then the next. They build momentum through small, consistent wins. Momentum is the antidote to fear. Fear grows in stillness. Momentum destroys fear. Your plan must also include self-management. You are not just planning tasks, you are planning your behavior. Because the biggest obstacle to your success is not the world. It is your own inconsistency. You must plan for your moods, your temptations, your laziness, your need for approval. If you do not plan for these, they will sabotage you in the middle. A winner plans his day so that his weaknesses have less room to operate. He wakes early enough to work before the day pulls him into chaos. He schedules focused work so distractions cannot easily steal it. He manages his money so pressure does not push him into desperate decisions. He controls his company so negative voices do not weaken his belief. This is not luck. This is design. Now, a plan to the end must be flexible in method and firm in purpose. Many men confuse planning with rigidity. They think if they plan, they must follow the exact route or else they failed. That is foolish. The end is the end. The route can change. A winner adapts. He stays firm on the destination and adjusts the path when reality demands. He does not panic when a door closes. He finds another route. He does not abandon purpose because method failed. He improves method. This is the mindset that wins. So, if you want to execute with a winner's mindset, you must live by 3 laws: clarity, consistency, and correction. Clarity is knowing exactly what you want and why. Consistency is doing the right actions daily, not occasionally. Correction is reviewing, learning, and adjusting without quitting. Most men lack correction. They either quit or stubbornly repeat the same mistake. A winner corrects quickly. He treats failure as feedback. He does not make failure personal. He makes it useful. That is how he moves faster over time. Not by rushing, but by learning. Here is the beginning of your end-to-end plan. Write your purpose. Break it into milestones. Choose the daily actions that create those milestones. Schedule them. Protect them. Review weekly. Correct monthly. Repeat until the end arrives. This is not glamorous, but it is unstoppable. The world cannot defeat a man who plans to the end and executes daily, because such a man removes randomness from his life. He replaces luck with law. You are not asking for a miracle. You are building inevitability. That is what a winner's mindset really is. Now you must turn planning into a machine. A plan that lives only on paper is a polite fantasy. A plan that lives inside your day becomes power. Most men fail here. They write goals, feel serious for an hour, then return to the same loose routine. They think the act of writing is progress. It is not. Writing is the declaration. Execution is the proof. The proof must be repeated until it becomes habit. That is the winner's mindset. You do not merely intend to win. You organize your life so winning becomes the natural outcome of daily behavior. Start with this truth. Your plan must be built around your weakest point, not your strongest. Your strongest point will carry you for a while. Your weakest point will end you in the middle if you ignore it. If your weakness is inconsistency, build a plan that forces consistency. If your weakness is spending, build a plan that forces financial restraint. If your weakness is fear of criticism, build a plan that forces exposure and practice. If your weakness is procrastination, build a plan that forces early action. A plan that does not address your weakness is not a plan to the end. It is a plan to the first obstacle. Now design the plan in layers. The end is the destination. Milestones are the checkpoints. Daily actions are the bricks. Most men can imagine an end and still fail because they never translate it into daily bricks. A winner does. He decides what must happen each day for the milestones to become inevitable. He makes those actions so clear that excuses have nowhere to hide. Excuses survive in vagueness. They die in specificity. So take your purpose and break it into 4 phases. Phase 1 is foundation, skill building, discipline, clarity, and financial stability. Phase 2 is production, output, consistent delivery, and measurable progress. Phase 3 is expansion, scaling value, widening reach, increasing income, building a stronger network. Phase 4 is consolidation, tightening systems, protecting reputation, stabilizing operations, and building durability. Your specific field will change the details, but the phases stay the same. Every serious achievement follows them. If you try to jump to expansion without foundation, you collapse. If you produce without consolidation, you burn out. Planning to the end means you respect the sequence. Now write what each phase requires. Be honest. If phase 1 requires studying, then you must schedule study. If phase 1 requires savings, then you must set a rule for money. If phase 1 requires improving health and stamina, then you must build a routine that strengthens your body. If phase 1 requires learning to speak and negotiate, then you must practice it. This is where men lie to themselves. They say they want an end, but they refuse the requirements. That refusal is why they never arrive. A winner does not argue with requirements. He accepts them and then builds a life around them. Next, choose your non-negotiable block. Every plan needs a protected core. Without it, the day will invade your priorities. You must decide the one block of time where your most valuable work happens. This is the work that builds the future. Learning the skill, creating the product, selling, writing, practicing, improving. You place this block early enough that the day cannot steal it easily. You treat it like an appointment with destiny. No casual interruptions. No random errands. No weak bargaining. When that block is done, the day may do what it wants. But until it is done, nothing else has the same importance. This is the difference between a winner and a drifter. The drifter says, I will do it when I get time. The winner says, I will make time because this is what creates my life. Time is not found. It is taken. Taken from distractions, from unnecessary conversations, from comfort, from excuses. If you are not willing to take time, you are not serious about the end. Now you must build your weekly review. Planning to the end requires correction, and correction requires review. A man who does not review his progress is walking blind. He may feel busy, but he will not know if he is moving. Once a week, at the same hour, you sit down and examine facts. What did you complete? What did you delay? What created progress? What created waste? Where did your plan break? Where did you break your word? Then you make one adjustment, not 10. 1. Overcorrecting is another form of mismanagement. The winner corrects steadily. He treats the plan like a living instrument, not a rigid idol. Review is the difference between consistent improvement and repeated failure. Your plan must also include a failure protocol. This is critical. Most men have no protocol. They treat failure like a verdict, not an event. When something goes wrong, they panic, collapse, quit, or numb themselves with distraction. That reaction is what ruins them, not the setback itself. A winner expects setbacks and has a response prepared. His protocol sounds like this. I will not dramatize. I will not quit. I will not make excuses. I will extract the lesson, adjust the method, and continue. He uses failure as information. The moment you treat failure as instruction, you stop fearing it. When you stop fearing it, you stop hesitating. When you stop hesitating, your speed increases without chaos. Now, to execute with a winner's mindset, you must learn the law of emotional control. Your emotions are not meant to govern the plan. They are meant to fuel it. If your emotions govern you, your execution becomes unpredictable. One day you work hard, the next day you drift. One day you feel bold, the next day you hide. That is not a plan to the end. That is gambling. A winner respects his moods, but does not obey them. He acts first, then emotions follow. He does not sit down waiting to feel like it. He begins, and beginning creates feeling. This is how discipline is built. You must also master the ability to operate without immediate reward. The middle of any long achievement contains long stretches where the work is invisible. Your plan must assume that. If you require constant proof, you will quit early. The winner's mindset is able to say, I am building roots. I do not need applause to continue. He understands compounding. He knows that small daily actions accumulate quietly, then suddenly produce visible results. Men who quit never experience the suddenly. They die in the quietly. If you want the end, you must endure the quiet. Now, you must plan for people. This is where many plans fail. A plan that ignores human nature is naive. People will disappoint you. Some will promise and not deliver. Some will praise you and then envy you. Some will doubt you. Some will demand your time. Some will try to pull you into their dramas. If you do not plan for these pressures, they will break your focus. So you build boundaries into the plan. You decide how much time you give to others, how much you protect for your mission, and which conversations you refuse. A winner's mindset does not try to please everyone. It tries to complete the mission. Pleasing everyone is impossible. Completing the mission is difficult but possible. This is why I emphasize the mastermind principle, association with people who strengthen your aim. Your plan should include purposeful alliances, mentors, partners, peers who demand excellence. If you cannot find them close by, you still choose their influence through what you study and what you feed your mind. The mind becomes like the company it keeps. If your company is weak, your plan will weaken. If your company is strong, your plan strengthens. Now address the money side of execution. Many men fail not because the plan is wrong, but because financial pressure makes them desperate. Desperation produces foolish decisions, cheap shortcuts, bad partnerships, quitting too soon, accepting offers that compromise character. So part of planning to the end is building financial breathing room. That means managing expenses, saving steadily, and refusing to live at the edge where one surprise breaks you. A winner's mindset does not flirt with disaster. It builds stability so it can execute calmly. Calm execution beats frantic execution every time. Planning to the end also means planning for your learning curve. You will not be excellent immediately. You must plan for practice, repetition, and refinement. You must be willing to be awkward and imperfect in the beginning. Many men refuse this. They want to appear skilled before they have earned skill. That pride destroys them. The winner's mindset accepts the beginner stage and stays faithful through it. He measures himself by improvement, not by image. Image is fragile. Improvement is real. Real improvement creates real results. Real results create real confidence. So your plan must include daily skill practice. Not vague, I will get better. Specific practice. Reading, writing, rehearsing, studying, building, selling, improving. The aim is mastery. Mastery is what makes the end inevitable. When you become exceptionally useful, the world cannot ignore you for long. Usefulness is the truest form of power. It opens doors without begging. It attracts opportunity without shouting. But it only comes through disciplined practice over time. Now let's talk about the most overlooked part of planning to the end. Planning for your own character flaws. Your flaws do not disappear because you wrote a plan. They will appear in the middle and try to wreck you. So you must identify your top 3 personal weaknesses and plan defenses against them. If you know you lose focus easily, your defense is a protected work block and a rule against scattered tasks. If you know you overspend when stressed, Your defense is a written budget and a waiting rule before any unnecessary purchase. If you know you get emotional in conflict, your defense is a pause rule. You never respond immediately when anger rises. You breathe, you think, then you speak. These defenses are not weakness. They are intelligence. A man who knows his weak points and builds protections is a man who lasts. Now, execution requires a particular attitude, inevitability. Inevitability is not arrogance. It is commitment. It means you stop entertaining the idea of quitting. You stop treating your plan as optional. You treat it like the road you walk, no matter what weather arrives. The man who keeps a mental exit door open will eventually use it when pressure rises. The man who closes the exit door finds solutions because he must. This is the difference between those who finish and those who excuse. You must close the exit door. You do that by making your purpose bigger than your comfort. Your purpose must have emotional weight. Why do you want this end? What will it do for your family? For your freedom? For your contribution? For your dignity? If your why is weak, your execution will be weak. The winner's mindset does not run on vague desire. It runs on strong reasons. Build your reasons. Write them. Read them when you feel tired. Remind yourself why the pain is worth it. Pain without purpose breaks men. Pain with purpose builds them. Now you must learn to operate with patience and urgency at the same time. This is the paradox of winners. Patience means you accept that the end takes time. Urgency means you do not waste today. Many men choose one and miss the other. Some have urgency without patience and burn out. Others have patience without urgency and drift. The winner has both. He does not rush the outcome, but he does not waste the process. He respects time, but he uses time. He does not panic, but he does not delay. This is why your plan must contain immediate actions, not just distant goals. Each day you must be able to answer, what action today moves me closer? If you cannot answer, your plan is too vague. Make it sharper. Planning to the end is not staring at the horizon. It is laying one brick with excellence today and then laying the next tomorrow. Finally, understand this. A winner's mindset is not loud. It does not need to announce itself. It does not need to argue with doubters. It simply executes. It proves itself through results, not through talk. When others question you, you do not waste time persuading them. You return to the plan. When others mock your patience, you return to the plan. When the middle feels long, you return to the plan. That returning is the secret. Most men drift away from their plan under pressure. Winners return. They return again and again until the end arrives. So now you have the structure. Definite purpose, reverse planning from the end, a protected daily work block, weekly review, failure protocol, skill practice, defenses for weaknesses, financial stability, strong reasons, patience with urgency. Put these together and execution becomes less about inspiration and more about system. Systems beat moods. Systems beat fear. Systems beat distraction. Systems make success repeatable. You asked for a winner's mindset. Here it is in one sentence. I plan to the end. I execute daily. I correct fast. And I do not quit. That mindset, lived consistently, will carry you farther than talent, luck, or sudden opportunity ever could. Now the plan has shape, and your execution has a structure. Good. But here is what will decide whether you actually reach the end. How you handle the long stretch where nothing seems to happen. This is where men with good plans still fail. They plan beautifully, start strong, and then reality turns quiet. Sales slow. Results take longer. Progress becomes invisible. The mind starts whispering, maybe this is not working. That whisper is the real battlefield. Winners do not win because they never hear it. Winners win because they have already planned for it and trained themselves to execute anyway. So you must build endurance into the plan itself. Endurance is not just toughness. It is a system for continuing when enthusiasm is gone. Enthusiasm is cheap. It arrives on its own. Endurance is expensive. It must be constructed. If your plan depends on you feeling inspired, your plan is weak. Inspiration is weather. You do not build a life on weather. You build it on discipline. Discipline means you decide what you will do, and then you do it whether the day feels bright or dull. The middle stretch is also where temptation attacks. Temptation does not usually show up as obvious evil. It shows up as small compromises that look harmless. Skipping one day of work, delaying one difficult call, spending a little more than you should, entertaining a distraction just for a moment. Small compromises feel small, but they train you to accept drift. Drift is the silent killer of plans. Drift does not destroy you in one blow. It dissolves you gradually until you wake up far from the end you swore you wanted. So you must operate with what I will call the discipline of continuity. Continuity is the ability to keep the chain unbroken. If your plan requires daily practice, then daily means daily. Not most days. Not when convenient. Daily. If you break the chain, you do not just lose time. You lose identity. You teach your mind that the plan is negotiable. Once the plan is negotiable, the end is optional, and an optional end is never reached. This is why you must create a daily minimum that is so simple you can do it even on your worst day. The minimum is not your best work. The minimum is the act that keeps the chain alive. The winner knows that intensity can vary, but consistency cannot. Some days you will produce at a high level. Some days you will only keep the minimum. But the minimum keeps momentum, and momentum keeps belief. Belief is not maintained by speeches. It is maintained by motion. Now let's address the next killer of execution. Confusion in the middle. Confusion appears when your plan is not being measured. If you do not measure progress, your mind starts inventing stories. It guesses. It exaggerates. It catastrophizes. You think you are not moving when you actually are because you have no scoreboard. Winners keep a scoreboard. Not for vanity, for clarity. Clarity reduces anxiety. Anxiety causes sloppy decisions. Sloppy decisions ruin the plan. So you must decide what you track. Track the actions that produce results, not just the results. Results can lag. Actions tell the truth daily. If you are building a business, you track the number of proposals made, the number of conversations, the number of deliveries, the quality of output. If you are building a skill, you track hours practiced, pages studied, repetitions completed. If you are building financial stability, you track spending, saving, debt reduction, investment in learning. This tracking is not obsession. It is management. A man who manages is calm. A man who guesses is anxious. Calm men execute better. Now, the greatest requirement of a winner's mindset is the ability to decide once and execute many times. Most men decide many times and execute once. They wake up each day and renegotiate their purpose, their standards, their schedule. That daily renegotiation drains willpower and invites excuses. The winner decides once at the level of identity. This is what I am building. This is who I am. Then he executes daily without asking for new permission. That is why he looks unstoppable. He is not negotiating with himself every morning. So you must treat your plan as a contract. A contract does not get rewritten every day because you feel different. A contract remains until it is completed or formally revised through review. That is why your weekly review exists. The weekly review is the proper place for adjustment, not in the heat of a hard day, not in the emotion of discouragement. Hard days are not decision days. Hard days are execution days. You execute through them. Then, during review, you correct method with a clear head. Now we move into a deeper part of thinking. The subconscious mind obeys what is repeated with feeling. If you want a winner's mindset, you must maintain the inner picture of the end while living in the grind of the middle. That means you rehearse the end daily, not as fantasy, but as direction. You see yourself finishing. You see yourself delivering. You see yourself owning the outcome. Not because you are pretending, but because you are programming persistence. A man who cannot picture himself finishing will quit the moment he gets tired. A man who pictures the finish daily can endure the middle because he keeps the end alive inside him. This is where people misunderstand visualization. They think it replaces work. It does not. It supports work. It gives the mind a destination so effort does not feel pointless. Without an inner picture, effort feels like wandering. Wandering produces boredom. Boredom produces quitting. So each morning, review your end in detail. What it looks like, what it costs, what habits it requires, what you must become to deserve it. Then you step into your day with seriousness. That seriousness separates winners from wishers. Now, your plan must include your character, because character is what carries you when skill is not enough. You can be skilled and still lose because you cannot manage your mouth, your pride, your impatience, your appetite, your anger. Winners plan their character the way they plan their tasks. They know which traits will be required at the end. If the end requires leadership, they train calm. If the end requires wealth, they train restraint. If the end requires influence, they train humility. If the end requires long building, they train patience. You must do the same. Choose 2 character traits to train during the middle. Do not choose 10. Choose 2 that directly protect execution. One might be self-control, refusing to react emotionally. Another might be perseverance, continuing when results are slow. Then build daily exercises. If you are training self-control, your exercise might be a pause rule. No immediate responses in anger. If you are training perseverance, your exercise might be a completion rule. Finish the planned work block no matter how you feel. Character is trained by repeated acts, not by moral speeches. Now we address the danger that destroys many in the middle. The desire to change plans too quickly. When progress feels slow, men become impatient and jump to a new idea. They call it being adaptable. Often it is just lack of persistence. Adaptability is changing method while staying loyal to purpose. Drifting is changing purpose because method became uncomfortable. Know the difference. The winner's mindset stays loyal to the mission long enough for compounding to take effect. Compounding is slow at first and then powerful. Men who quit early never experience compounding. They live in perpetual beginnings. So here is a rule. You do not abandon the plan during discouragement. You review it at scheduled times. You adjust method if necessary, but you do not escape. Escape resets the clock. Every time you reset the clock, you waste years. The world is full of men who have been starting over their whole lives. They are not unlucky. They are undisciplined. They love novelty more than mastery. Mastery requires staying. Now we bring in the concept of the mastermind, because execution to the end is rarely a solo victory. Your plan must include intelligent association, not socializing. Association, people who hold you to standards, people who think beyond the moment, people who speak in principles, not gossip. The wrong crowd will drain your focus and fill your head with doubt. The right circle will sharpen your resolve and correct your blind spots. I taught that coordinated effort multiplies power. If you isolate yourself completely, you increase the chance of mental drift. So choose at least one strong connection, mentor, peer, or partner who respects your purpose and will challenge your excuses. And you must also protect your mind from the opposite influence, those who weaken your belief with constant negativity. A winner's mindset is not built in a swamp. It is built in clean mental air. If every conversation you have is complaint, your mind will become complaint. Complaint makes you feel temporarily justified and permanently stuck. The plan requires optimism of action, not naive cheerfulness, but the steady belief that disciplined effort produces results. Guard that belief. It is fuel. Now we talk about money again, because money pressure is one of the biggest reasons people quit in the middle. A strong plan includes financial stamina. It means you do not live so close to the edge that one surprise forces you into panic. Panic creates bad choices. Bad choices ruin the plan. So build a cushion, even if small. Reduce unnecessary expenses. Create a simple savings habit. Keep your obligations manageable. This is not fear. This is planning to the end. A man who wants to execute like a winner must protect his mind from constant financial terror. Terror destroys focus. Now, execution requires a habit most people never learn. Boring repetition. Success is built on repeating the same right actions long after the excitement is gone. You practice the skill again. You make the call again. You refine the work again. You show up again. Repetition is where mastery is born. But repetition feels dull to the undisciplined. They crave novelty, so they quit. The winner's mindset respects repetition because it understands the law of accumulation. 10 small actions repeated daily beat one grand action done occasionally. The world rewards the man who stays consistent. Consistency is the rarest currency. So stop judging your progress emotionally. Judge it by adherence. Did you execute the plan today? Did you complete the work block? Did you keep the financial rule? Did you practice the skill? Did you review your numbers? Did you maintain restraint? If yes, you are on track even if nothing visible happened today. If no, you must correct immediately, because drift begins with small misses. Now we must deal with the final enemy, the fear of finishing. Yes, fear of finishing. Many men fear failure, but many also fear success because success demands a new identity. When you approach the end, the world's eyes turn toward you. Expectations rise. Pressure increases. The old self wants to retreat back to the familiar middle where no one expects greatness. So it will create distractions. It will create arguments. It will create emergencies. It will make you delay the final steps. If you have done this before, you know it is true. You got close, then you disappeared. That was not random. That was identity conflict. The cure is to plan for the final push as seriously as you plan for the start. The final phase requires consolidation. It requires tightening systems. It requires protecting your health and mind. It requires calm. You do not sprint blindly at the end. You execute with precision. You reduce distractions. You increase focus. You commit to finishing, and you do it without drama. Drama wastes energy. Precision finishes. So now, if you want to plan all the way to the end and execute like a winner, you must adopt this final mental posture. Inevitability through adherence. Not arrogance, adherence. You do not say, I will win because I am special. You say, I will win because I execute daily, correct quickly, and refuse to quit. That is the winner's mindset in its purest form. It is not a feeling. It is a contract. And when you live under that contract, the middle no longer threatens you. It becomes your workshop. The slow days become training. The setbacks become feedback. The long stretches become compounding. You stop asking, is this working? And start asking, am I working the plan? Because if you work the plan long enough, the end will arrive. Not by miracle, by law. You are not chasing a finish line anymore. You are building a life that cannot help but cross it. Now we complete the system by addressing the final stage most men never plan for, the end game. You can plan the beginning and survive the middle and still lose at the end if you do not prepare for what happens when momentum turns into visibility. When results start showing, the pressure changes. New demands appear. New distractions arrive. People who ignored you suddenly want access. Weak opportunities dressed as great offers start crowding your time. Your pride rises because now you have proof. Your fear rises because now you have something to lose. The end game is where many men fall, not because they are weak, but because they never plan for the weight of winning. If you want to execute with a winner's mindset, you must plan for success the same way you plan for hardship. Success is a test. It tests your humility, your focus, your boundaries, your discipline, your ability to maintain standards without the hunger that used to drive you. Hunger is easy fuel. Maintenance is harder fuel. That is why so many men can grind their way up and then decay. They stop doing the boring daily actions that created the climb. They start living on applause. They begin believing they are above the small disciplines. Then the structure cracks. A winner plans to prevent that crack before it appears. Start by understanding what the end actually is. The end is not a single moment. It is a phase. The end is the period where the plan must produce consistently, not occasionally. It is the stage where results must be repeatable. Many men can generate one win. Few can keep winning. The end game is where you shift from chasing results to building systems that hold results. Systems are what make success durable. Without systems, success becomes dependent on mood, and mood changes. Without systems, success becomes dependent on luck, and luck disappears. Systems convert a win into a foundation. So, in the end game, your plan must include consolidation. Consolidation means tightening what you already built. It means removing what wastes energy. It means strengthening what is working. It means making your process stable enough that you can keep producing even when pressure increases. Consolidation is the opposite of expansion. Expansion says add. Consolidation says strengthen. Most men ignore consolidation because it feels slow and unglamorous. They want to keep adding. That urge can destroy them. The winner knows when to stop adding and start tightening. Here is how you tighten. First, you reduce your commitments. The end game requires focus. When success begins to show, offers will multiply. Invitations, partnerships, side projects, people asking for your time. If you say yes to everything, you dilute the very effort that created your rise. You become scattered at the moment you need to be sharp. So you must become ruthless with your calendar. You protect the core work that produces results, and you decline anything that pulls you away from it. You do this calmly, without apology. A man who apologizes for focus is still insecure. A winner respects his purpose enough to defend it. Second, you tighten your standards. When you were hungry, you probably worked hard because you had to. Now the danger is comfort. Comfort whispers, you can ease up. Ease up is the first step of decline. The winner's mindset does not depend on pressure from outside. It depends on standards inside. So in the end game, you do not lower your standards because things are going well. You raise them. You refine. You demand better quality, better efficiency, better clarity, better discipline. Not as an obsession, but as maintenance. The moment you stop refining is the moment decay begins. Third, you tighten your finances. When money increases, temptation increases. The untrained man thinks increased income gives him permission to increase spending. That is how men stay broke at every level. The winner uses increased income to increase stability first. He builds reserves. He strengthens his base. He invests in assets, skills, and systems. He does not rush to show wealth. He understands that showing wealth is often insecurity. Real power is quiet. Real wealth is controlled. So, in your plan, the end game includes stricter financial rules than the beginning, not looser ones. This is how you keep the crown once you receive it. Now, the end game also requires a new form of mental discipline, handling attention. When you are unknown, you could work freely. When you become visible, you are watched. Praise can inflate you. Criticism can distract you. Comparisons can tempt you into performance. Performance is deadly because it shifts your focus from substance to image. The winner's mindset refuses that trap. It stays focused on output and standards, not on being admired. Praise is received and released. Criticism is evaluated and used or discarded. Neither is allowed to govern behavior. This is maturity. This is leadership. You must plan for this. Decide in advance how you will respond to praise. Your rule should be, do not let praise change your work. Praise is not a signal to relax. It is not a signal that you have arrived. It is simply noise from the world. If praise becomes your fuel, you will become dependent on it. Then the day praise fades, you will collapse. So you treat praise as information. My work is valuable. Then you return to the work. Decide in advance how you will respond to criticism. Criticism is dangerous because it can lead to emotional reactions. Winners do not react. They assess. If the criticism is true, they correct. If it is false, they ignore. They do not argue with every voice because arguing wastes energy. The end game is not the time to be distracted by every opinion. The end game is the time to execute with precision. So you must have the discipline to let noise pass without pulling you off course. Now we go deeper. The end game also tests your identity. When you start winning, the ego wants to claim it as proof of superiority. That arrogance is a poison. It makes you stop learning. It makes you dismiss counsel. It makes you believe you are exempt from rules. Then life corrects you with a hard fall. A winner's mindset stays humble, not by pretending to be small, but by staying teachable. Teachable men remain sharp. Proud men dull themselves. So your plan to the end must include a commitment to continued learning, not optional learning. Scheduled learning. Each week you study your craft, study markets, study human nature, study your own decisions. You look for weaknesses before they become disasters. That is how you stay on top. Also in the end game, you must manage your health. Many men build success and lose their body. They treat the body like a machine they can abuse. Then the machine breaks and everything slows. A winner does not build one part of life while destroying another. He understands that health is part of performance and part of joy. If the end is to be meaningful, you must be strong enough to enjoy and sustain it. So the end game includes routines for rest, movement, and mental recovery. You cannot execute to the end if you are constantly exhausted. Exhaustion produces sloppy decisions. Sloppy decisions break systems. Systems are what the end depends on. So protect your body as part of your plan. Now we address a hidden danger, overconfidence in the plan. Planning to the end does not mean believing the plan will unfold exactly as written. It means you are committed to the destination and ready to adjust method. The end game often requires adaptation because growth changes conditions. What worked at one level may not work at the next. The winner expects that. He reviews and adjusts. He does not cling to outdated methods out of pride. He evolves, but he evolves without changing the mission. Mission stays. Method improves. That is intelligent execution. So your plan must include a monthly strategic review. Not a daily panic, a monthly review. You examine what has changed. Markets, demands, costs, resources, your own capacity. You ask, what must be improved to continue rising? You decide one improvement and implement it. This keeps your plan alive and prevents you from being surprised by change. Most men are surprised by change because they never review. They run until they hit a wall. Winners review, adjust, and keep running. Now let's discuss the most important end game requirement, finishing psychology. Many men can work for years and still sabotage at the last mile. They fear finishing because finishing forces identity change. If you finish, you can no longer hide behind "I am trying." You can no longer blame bad timing. You must own your result. That ownership is heavier than they expected. So they delay the last steps. They distract themselves. They start unnecessary conflicts. They get busy. They unconsciously choose chaos because chaos provides cover. If this has happened to you before, you know it is true. So you must plan for the final mile. You must decide in advance. When I am close, I will not create distractions. When I am close, I will tighten my schedule. When I am close, I will avoid unnecessary conversations. When I am close, I will sleep properly. When I am close, I will simplify. Simplification is the end game strategy. You remove everything that is not essential. Then you execute the essential with intensity and calm. Calm intensity is the winner's posture. Here is how you simplify. You identify the one or two actions that produce 80% of your results and you focus there. The rest becomes secondary. Many men keep doing everything because it feels safe. They do not want to bet on what matters. They spread themselves thin. That thinness prevents finishing. Winners bet on what matters. They do less, better. They reduce noise. They increase depth. Depth creates finish. Now you must also plan your mindset for setbacks at the end. Setbacks do not disappear in the end game. Sometimes the hardest obstacles appear right before completion. That is not random. That is law testing your persistence. The final mile exposes whether you were serious or merely excited. When a setback appears near the end, you do not interpret it as a sign to stop. You interpret it as a final examination. You say, "This is the last test of my commitment. I will not fail here." Then you adjust and continue. That is the difference between those who finish and those who tell stories about almost finishing. Now, as you continue executing, remember the winner's mindset is based on 3 pillars: clarity, consistency, correction. In the end game, these pillars must be even stronger. Clarity means you keep your destination in mind and do not get distracted by side rewards. Consistency means you keep executing the daily core actions regardless of attention and comfort. Correction means you keep reviewing and improving without ego. These pillars prevent collapse. And when you do reach the end, when you achieve the milestone you plan for, you must not fall into the trap of thinking it is the final end. Every end is a new beginning. But the difference now is that you have built a winning system. You have proven you can plan, execute, endure, adapt, and finish. That proof becomes part of your identity. It changes how you see yourself forever. You are no longer the man who starts and fades. You are the man who finishes. That is power. That is the real reward. So here is the final instruction for planning to the end. Treat the end game as a phase of discipline, not celebration. Celebrate quietly, then return to maintenance. Keep the systems, keep the standards, keep the review, keep the learning, keep the health routines, keep the boundaries. That is how success becomes permanent instead of temporary. Temporary success is entertainment. Permanent success is legacy. You ask for execution with a winner's mindset. This is it. Plan from the end, build daily structure, endure the middle, tighten in the end game, and finish with calm intensity. The world cannot defeat a man who lives this way because he removes randomness from his progress. He replaces hope with method, and method with consistency, and consistency with results. That is how winners are made. Now you end this the way a winner ends everything, with a clear decision and a controlled finish. Not a loud finish, not an emotional finish, a controlled finish. Because the whole reason you plan to the end is so the end does not surprise you. The end is not luck. The end is the natural consequence of disciplined planning, steady execution, and continuous correction. If you want the winner's mindset in its purest form, it comes down to one sentence you must live by. I will not leave the outcome to chance when I can leave it to structure. Most men lose because they keep their life in a constant state of improvisation. They improvise their mornings, improvise their priorities, improvise their money decisions, improvise their habits, improvise their responses to pressure. Then they wonder why their results are unstable. Instability is not fate. It is self-management without a system. A winner does not improvise important things. A winner builds a routine strong enough to carry him even on weekdays. That is why planning to the end matters. It turns the day into a machine that produces progress. So here is the final discipline. Be loyal to the plan when you do not feel loyal. That is where most people collapse. They can execute when they feel excited, but not when they feel ordinary. They can push when they feel inspired, but not when they feel tired. That is not a winner's mindset. That is a mood-dependent lifestyle. The winner's mindset is built on one ability: acting without needing the feeling first. When you act first, feeling follows. When you wait for feeling, you waste time and train weakness. Now remember the three pillars you have been building: clarity, consistency, correction. In this final stage, you treat them like laws. Clarity means your end is defined so precisely that you cannot pretend you do not know what to do. Consistency means your daily actions are so repeatable that progress becomes automatic. Correction means you do not stubbornly repeat mistakes. You adjust fast and continue. If you keep those three pillars alive, you stop fearing setbacks, because setbacks become instructions, not threats. You stop fearing slow progress, because slow progress becomes compounding, not failure. You stop fearing the end, because the end becomes the next checkpoint, not a mystery. There is one more warning. As you approach the end of any major goal, the world will try to distract you. People will show up with demands. Offers will appear that look attractive, but dilute your focus. Your own mind will create urgent tasks that are not essential. This is the final trap. You must simplify. You must tighten. You must reduce your life to what matters and execute it with calm intensity. A finisher does less better. That is how the end is reached without chaos. So decide now what your essentials are. Identify the one or two actions that produce the majority of your results. Protect them daily. Everything else becomes secondary. If you do not do this, you will remain busy and still fall short. Busy is not progress. Focused execution is progress. Winners respect that difference. And when you finally hit the goal, do not let celebration destroy the discipline that created it. This is where many fall. They treat the win as permission to relax into old habits. They break the routine that built them. Then they lose momentum and call it a rough patch. No, it is the law again. If you stop doing what created the result will not stay. So you celebrate quietly, then you maintain. Maintenance is what separates temporary success from lasting success. The world applauds the win, but the win is held in place by habits no one sees. If you want your life to change permanently, you must become the kind of man who plans, executes, and finishes repeatedly. Not once, repeatedly. Because the real prize is not one result. The real prize is the identity you build by finishing. Finishing changes how you see yourself. It gives you proof. Proof becomes confidence. Confidence becomes bold action. Bold action becomes bigger outcomes. That cycle is how a winner's life expands. So carry this with you. Plan to the end, execute daily, correct quickly, and refuse to quit in the middle. That is the winner's mindset. Live it, and the end will stop being a dream. It will become a date on your calendar and a result in your hands.